Order, please. We'll now begin with the daily routine, beginning with presenting and reading of petitions. The Honourable Member for Cole Harbour Eastern Passage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to table a petition, the operative clause being, we are petitioning the provincial government of Nova Scotia, specifically the Department of Lands and Forests, to review the letters of authority issued for rails to trails corridors within the province to ensure that everyone and their recreational activities such as horseback riding and driving off-road vehicles are not excluded on any provincial trails, but more importantly, ensuring universal accessibility for anyone with limited mobility challenges that may require alternative modes of transportation. We, the undersigned, are concerned citizens who urge our provincial and municipal governments to act now to revisit, review, and reassess the process in which our rails to trails corridors are designated, managed, and funded. And Mr. Speaker, I have affixed my name as per the requirements of the House, and there are 770 signatures.
Petition is tabled. The Honourable Member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I make an introduction before I begin?
Permission granted.
Thank you. I'd like to draw the House's attention to the gallery opposite, where a constituent of mine, Eric Gould, is present. Eric is a volunteer with Greenpeace Halifax, and he is a passionate and committed activist working to protect our oceans and our environment in general. And so I'd like to welcome him here and ask everyone to give him a warm welcome.
The Honourable Member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you. I'd like to table a petition, Mr. Speaker, where the operative clause is as follows. We ask that the Government of Nova Scotia ban the use of retail single-use plastics to protect our marine animals and ecosystems. There are approximately 379 signatures, and I have affixed my own according to the rules of the House.
The petition is tabled. We'll now move on to presenting reports of committees. The Honourable Vice Chair of the Law Amendments Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as Vice Chair of the Committee on Law Amendments, I am directed to report that the committee has met and considered the following bills. Bill number 152, an act to reduce the use of plastic bags and other single-use products. Bill number 160, an act to amend Chapter 25 of the Acts of 1996, the Fisheries and Coastal Resources Act. Bill number 163, an act to amend Chapter 27 of the Acts of 1998, the Wilderness Areas Protection Act. Bill number 166, an act to amend Chapter 25 of the Acts of 2000, the Denturis Act. And Bill number 170, an act to amend Chapter 371 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Public Highways Act. The committee recommends these bills for the favorable consideration of the House without amendments. Thank you.
Ordered that these bills be referred to the Committee of the Whole House on Bills. We'll now move on to tabling reports, regulations, and other papers. Statements by ministers. Government notices of motion. The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas mental illness affects people of all ages, income levels, cultures, and education, and whereas 1 in 5 Canadians will personally experience a mental health challenge or illness, and whereas October 6th to 12th, 2019 is Mental Illness Awareness Week, aiming to increase awareness of the reality of mental illness, therefore be it resolved that all members of this House recognize Mental Illness Awareness Week and commit to help increase awareness and decrease the stigma of mental illness. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waivers. Is it agreed? It is agreed. Would all those in favour of the motion please say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Minister of African Nova Scotian Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Dr. Elizabeth Cromwell, beloved community leader, recently passed at the age of 75. And whereas Dr. Cromwell from Birchtown was a graduate of the Halifax Vocational School in Social Work, devoted member of the Black Cultural Society Board and the Black United Front, founding member and president of the Black Loyalist Heritage Society, awardee of honorary degrees from Mount St. Vincent and Dalhousie University, recipient of the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Medal, and the Multicultural Volunteer of the Year Award from Nova Scotia, appointee of the Order of Canada in 2018, and notified to be an upcoming Order of Nova Scotia recipient. Whereas Dr. Cromwell will always be remembered for her determination, passion, commitment, and tireless effort towards the preservation of education of African history in Nova Scotia, and her involvement in establishing the Black Loyalist Heritage Centre in Shelburne. Therefore, be it resolved that the members of this House of Assembly please join me in acknowledging Ms. Cromwell on her great efforts. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? It is agreed. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye. Contrary minded, nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Minister of Immigration.
I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the Coptic Orthodox Church was founded in 42 AD, they are the native Christians of Egypt, and the Church has a strong presence throughout the United States, Europe, Australia, Asia, and a consistent presence in Canada since the 1950s, including Halifax. And whereas the Coptic Orthodox communities in Halifax will celebrate the arrival of His Grace Bishop Boulos, the first ever Coptic Orthodox Bishop over Ottawa, Montreal, and Eastern Canada this Sunday, October 13th at St. Mina's Coptic Orthodox Church. And whereas His Grace Bishop Boulos was ordained by His Holiness Pope Tawadros, the 118th Pope in Cairo, on June 8, 2019, therefore be it resolved that all members of the House of Assembly join me in congratulating St. Mina's Coptic Orthodox Church and Nova Scotia's Coptic Orthodox community as they welcome His Grace Bishop Boulos to our beautiful province. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? It is agreed. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye. Contrary minded, nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Minister responsible for the Emergency Measures Organization.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas October 6 to 12 is Fire Prevention Week, and whereas throughout our province, hundreds of volunteer and career firefighters give selflessly to help protect residents of their communities from fires. And whereas all Nova Scotians have a responsibility to educate themselves about how to prevent fires and keep their families safe. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House thank all firefighters in our province and encourage all Nova Scotians to know 2 ways out of every room. Have a plan to escape during a fire. Practice that plan with their families and ensure smoke alarms are working properly. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waivers. Is it agreed? It is agreed. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye. Contrary minded, nay. The motion is carried. We'll now move on to introduction of bills. The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce a bill titled An Act to Amend Chapter 31 of the Acts of 2001, the Fatality Investigations Act.
The Honourable Minister of Justice begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 31 of the Acts of 2001, the Fatality Investigations Act.
Bill number 180, entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 31 of the Acts of 2001, Fatality Investigations Act.
Ordered that this bill be read a second time on a future day. The Honourable Member for Dartmouth East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Permission to make an introduction.
Permission granted.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In the West Gallery, we have members from the Board of Directors from Affirmative Ventures, a not-for-profit supportive housing unit that we have in Dartmouth East. We have with us Dr. Norman Greenberg, Deborah Wood, Leonard McKay, Krista Jurlink, and also with them is Project Manager Dave Harrison. I'll ask you to please stand and receive the warm welcome of the House of Assembly.
The honourable member for Dartmouth East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 380 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Public Utilities Act, respecting charitable housing.
The honourable member for Dartmouth East begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 380 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Public Utilities Act, respecting charitable housing.
Bill number 181, entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 380 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Public Utilities Act, respecting charitable housing.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. The honourable leader of the New Democratic Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a bill, an act to require reporting respecting the healthcare crisis.
The honourable leader of the New Democratic Party begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Require Reporting Respecting the Healthcare Crisis.
Bill number 182, entitled An Act to Require Reporting Respecting the Healthcare Crisis.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 80 of the Acts of 1975, an act to exempt from taxation the property of the Digby Town and Municipal Housing Corporation in the town of Digby.
The Honourable Minister of the Environment begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 80 of the Acts of 1975, an act to exempt from taxation the property of the Digby Town and Municipal Housing Corporation in the town of Digby.
Bill number 183, entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 80 of the Acts of 1975, an act to exempt from taxation the property of the Digby Town and Municipal Housing Corporation in the town of Digby.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. The honourable member for Cape Breton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 5 of the Acts of 2005, the Emergency Health Services Act.
The honourable member for Cape Breton Centre begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 5 of the Acts of 2005, the Emergency Health Services Act.
Bill number 184, entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 5 of the Acts of 2005, the Emergency Health Services Act.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. The honourable member for Cape Breton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Provide for Affordable Hearing Aids for Seniors.
The honourable member for Cape Breton Centre begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Provide for Affordable Hearing Aids for Seniors.
Bill number 185, entitled An Act to Provide for Affordable Hearing Aids for Seniors.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. The honourable member for Cape Breton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 7 of the Acts of 2011, the Fair Drug Pricing Act.
The honourable member for Cape Breton Centre begs leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 7 of the Acts of 2011, the Fair Drug Pricing Act.
Bill number 186, entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 7 of the Acts of 2011, the Fair Drug Pricing Act.
Ordered that the bill be read a second time on a future day. Now move on to notices of motion. Statements by members. The honourable member for Cumberland South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today I rise to recognize Mr. Jim Fleming, who last week retired after 38 years with the Truro Police Service. His distinguished career began in 1981, and over the time he has worked in many facets of the police service, including Deputy Police Chief, a role that he held for the last 12 years. Deputy Chief Fleming has found his career in policing very rewarding and has appreciated the opportunities he was presented to help the people. Jim plans to remain active in the community with his many hobbies. I ask the members of this House to join me in celebrating and thanking Jim Fleming for his years of service to the Truro Police Services. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Dartmouth South.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak for the more than 60 dialysis patients who lost access to treatment at their own hospital. This summer, the NSHA made the decision to move the hemodialysis unit from the Dartmouth General Hospital to the Victoria General in Halifax. Kevin Kilgar reached out to my office with a document containing signatures from 35 other worried patients. This decision was made without consultation with the patients and puts further financial and logistical burden on people living with an already challenging health condition, not to mention their caregivers. Mr. Speaker, this decision is one of so many made in Halifax that makes sense in a spreadsheet, but surely not in real life. The renovation of the Dartmouth General could have been staged to avoid this, but it wasn't, and that's a shame.
The honourable member for Halifax Armdale.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to thank Armdale's Derek Martin and the Halifax Wanderers Football Club for reigniting our city's love of soccer. In spring 2018, when it was announced that the Wanderers would be one of the founding clubs to play in the Canadian Premier League, hundreds of excited Haligonians came out to celebrate. Derek promised that the team would soon become a key part of Nova Scotia's cultural identity and that Wanderers grounds would be a site of celebration, community and fun for fans from far and wide. Mr. Speaker, the team has succeeded. We're all Wanderers now, and the excitement in the city and the province on game day is palpable. The fans are behind the Wanderers, beaming with civic pride and love of the game. Please join me in thanking Derek, the entire Halifax Wanderers team, and all the fans who support soccer in Nova Scotia. And let's all cheer them on as they play their last home match of the season tomorrow night on October 9th. Thank you.
The honourable member for Cumberland North.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to recognize Rebecca Taylor of the town of Amherst and Ron Furlong of the Amherst Area Chamber of Commerce for their work with the Gritty to Pretty program. With their work through the Department of Municipal Affairs and its beautification and streetscaping program, they were able to secure $20,000 this year and $25,000 last year for commercial projects in downtown Amherst. Rebecca and Ron are working with local businesses to help with their projects to beautify and improve our community. The goal is to attract more business to Amherst and help the local economy by improving these current businesses. Today, I would like to formally thank Rebecca Taylor and Ron Furlong for putting their hard work into improving our community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to mark the significant impact of the transition year program at Dalhousie University. It was founded 50 years ago by civil rights leaders, notably including Rocky Jones and his frequent collaborator, historian James Walker. Some 2,000 students of Mi'kmaq and African Nova Scotian descent have begun their post-secondary education through TYP. On Friday, along with the Minister of African Nova Scotian Affairs and the leader of the NDP, I attended an event to mark TYP's anniversary where people expressed mixed feelings about the fact that it is still needed 50 years later. That says something about the structural racism that affects learners in our schools and in our province. The story of Dr. Shauna Hoyt, however, is cause for celebration. Finishing high school, she asked her guidance counselor for help in applying to university and was encouraged instead to study hairdressing. Thanks to TYP, she did enter university, was supported, and now a lawyer and a PhD in social work teaches in the School of Social Work at Dalhousie. Her impact is huge, and so is the impact of TYP. Thank you.
The honourable member for Clayton Park West.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to recognize a constituent of mine who's no stranger to giving back to the community. Kavita Thomas, a student at Halifax West High School, has been involved with many volunteer projects at her school, in particular the Spirit Committee, where she helps plan school activities. Kavita was involved early on with her family working at the local food bank. But she's also especially excited to be involved in Wee Villages in Kenya. The goal of this organization is to break the cycle of poverty and achieve long-term community development. It has been operating in Kenya since 2004. Mr. Speaker, would this House of Assembly join me in thanking Kavita for teaching others the importance of thinking about those less fortunate and how easy it is to help. Thank you.
The honourable member for Queen Shelburne.
Mr. Speaker, October 5th was World Teachers' Day, and today I rise to recognize a very special teacher, Adam Lushner of Dr. J.C. Wickwire Academy in Liverpool, for initiating a very special project. A believer in hands-on and outdoor learning, when he saw an opportunity to involve his school in a once-in-a-lifetime project, he didn't hesitate. He applied for and received a reconciliation grant with the idea of building an authentic wigwam to use as part of their outdoor classroom. Adam approached well-known Mi'kmaq elder artisan and master builder Todd Labrador to oversee the project. Todd and his family, along with 400 students and staff, harvested and boiled spruce roots and built the wigwam over a 3-day period. Mr. Speaker, I congratulate Adam, Todd, and his family and the students and staff of Wickwire on this culturally rich and absolutely amazing accomplishment. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to pay tribute to Scott McNeil, a pillar of the local 2S LGBTQIA community who passed away last week. Scott first found community in The Club, one of the first gay bars in the city located in the Green Lantern building in 1975, and later became manager of Rumors, the bar run by the Gay Alliance for Equality. In 1984, Scott's life changed when his dear friend Graham died of AIDS-related complications. Scott went on to become a founding member of the Gay Health Association, the province's first HIV/AIDS advocacy organization. In 1987, Scott represented the group, then called MAC-AIDS, on the Nova Scotia Task Force on AIDS. Scott's autobiographical account, Reflections in a Mirror Ball, published on the Gay Halifax Wiki, is a must-read for all Nova Scotia history buffs. I'd like to recognize Scott's many contributions to the local 2S LGBTQIA community and offer condolences to his sister Doreen and all who loved him and who are mourning his loss.
The honourable member for Kings South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when chasing big dreams, one needs perseverance and dedication. 12-year-old Emmanuel Kingsman from Canaan has dreams of becoming a professional ballet dancer. As a team member of Dance Connection in Kentville, she trains 4 days a week in ballet, jazz, lyrical, and contemporary dance. This past November, this dedicated young dancer auditioned for the summer program of the National Ballet School of Canada. And I am delighted to share with this House that she was accepted to this prestigious program. From rural Nova Scotia on a Friday to downtown Toronto on a Monday, Emmanuel spent this past June training every day amongst Canada's best young dancers. I invite all members of the Nova Scotia House of Assembly to join me in congratulating Emmanuel Kinsman for her acceptance to the National Ballet School of Canada and for her relentless pursuit of her dreams. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to congratulate Stephanie Clark, sole proprietor of Urban Hair Salon in Lower Sackville. Opening its doors July 20th, 1999, Urban Hair has grown from a 1-person to a 7-person salon some 20 years later. The staff of Urban Hair not only offers a wide range of services to their customers, but also provides free services to those less fortunate around Christmas time. They have been very supportive of local charities, spending many hours of hard work fundraising and sponsoring numerous events and organizations. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask all members of this Assembly to take this opportunity to congratulate Stephanie Clark and her staff at Urban Hair Salon on their 20th anniversary and thank them for their continued efforts in helping the needy of our community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cape Breton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In a time of healthcare crisis, I rise to recognize the EHS workers who continue to do their best in sometimes the worst of circumstance. I applied the UOE Local 727 for continuing their Twitter campaign entitled #ColdCritical. Sadly, at 8 a.m. this morning in HRM, there were 0 units available, and the same yesterday and the day before, and that's just in HRM. Although the employer advises EHS not to take part in this campaign, they, along with all concerned in this healthcare crisis, continue to move along. Solidarity.
The honourable member for Kings West.
I beg leave, Mr. Speaker, to make an introduction.
Permission granted.
In the East Gallery, we have a young lady from the Annapolis Valley, terrific athlete in track and field, long distance running, hockey, and currently a nursing student at my alma mater, St. Francis Xavier. If Hillary could rise and receive the warm welcome of the House.
The honourable member for Kings West.
Mr. Speaker, it takes a great deal of dedication, hard work, and grit to compete with the best of the best in the running world. Today is a pleasure to congratulate local runner Hillary Roding and share with you her recent running accomplishments. Hillary of Greenwood found a love of running in grade 4 for fun at Kingston Elementary in a fun run, and says she got competitive because she wanted to beat the boys. In middle school, she began competing at track meets, and in high school, transitioning to competing competitively at regionals, winning provincials in the 800-meter and 3,000-meter events, moving on to nationals. Since then, Hillary has been a member of the Vermont track and field team, having attended University of Vermont on a full scholarship because of her talent. Now she had a qualifying time of 3:17 for the Boston Marathon and competed in the 2019 edition with a remarkable finish. She also recently placed first in her division in the 10K run for the Lobster Race in Pictou, personal best time of 41:29. Notably, this was her first 10K competitive race. Mr. Speaker, I ask all members of the House help me in congratulating Hillary on her accomplishments.
The honourable member for Cole Harbour Eastern Passage.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to bring recognition to the Friends of McNabb's Island Society. On Sunday, June 9, 2019, the 28th annual beach cleanup was held, gathering approximately 350 bags of garbage and recyclables, along with a lot of other debris. This scope of work could not have been accomplished without the help of dozens of volunteers. To date, almost 14,000 bags have been collected. Most of the debris collected this year was plastic and styrofoam. The Nova Scotia Department of Lands and Forests was glad to transport the garbage to the main wharf of McNabb's Island. Then AMC, Charters, and Develop Nova Scotia brought it ashore, where HRM supplied garbage trucks to dispose accordingly. I ask all members of the Nova Scotia Legislature to join me in thanking the hardworking and dedicated Friends of McNabb's Island Society and everyone who helps to keep our community free of litter for all of their hard work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Dartmouth North.
Mr. Speaker, over the weekend, something very special took place in Dartmouth North, a community production of the ancient story of Stone Soup. The play was an entertaining and inspiring show that explored the themes of real and symbolic hunger and how a community can discover its power by coming together. It culminated in a real stone-less soup dinner at the Dartmouth North Community Food Centre. Dartmouth North Stone Soup featured about 20 local children performers, 4 youth performers, 10 adult performers, 5 local visual artists, musicians, many local writers, script editors, as well as the New Beginnings Ministries Praise Team and the Club Inclusion Choir. The sold-out performance was funded by Between the Bridges and the Nova Scotia Cultural Innovation Fund and organized in collaboration with many organizations. There are too many to list here, but special shout-outs go to the Dartmouth North Library and the Food Centre and the Take Action Society. The show was an incredible community collaboration, but it would not have been possible without artistic producers Ryan Rogerson and Jeff Schwager and our youth producers Jade Grimes and Emily Hooper. Thank you to them and to all who contributed to the show.
The honourable member for Yarmouth.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. After over 30 years at our regional radio station, Y95 CGLS, Dave Hall has retired as its general manager. Dave was a constant source of encouragement, support, and kindness to his many fellow staff members over the years, and is a dedicated member of our community who gives generously of his time and energy to many causes and organizations. I ask this House to join me in congratulating Dave Hall on his well-earned retirement and in wishing him a happy and healthy future.
The honourable member for Victoria the Lakes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on Saturday, August 10th, there was a continuous line of friends and neighbours who dropped into the Bedeck Library branch to thank Larry McDonald, longtime bookmobile driver, for his years of service on his last day of work. For a little boy who lived many years of his life in Little Narrows, attended a one-room schoolhouse, a bookmobile visit had been a treat for him. He was an avid reader as a child and as an adult. This passion and the love of home led him to eventually become the operator of the Cape Breton Bookmobile. I ask all members of the legislature to join me in thanking Larry for sharing his love of reading and providing a great service, and wishing him the very best in his future endeavors. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Bedford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to congratulate Ed McHugh on being named Bedford's 2019 Adult Volunteer of the Year. Ed has been involved in many organizations over the years, including minor basketball, junior girls varsity basketball at CP Allen High School, Special Olympics, Northwood Healthcare Board, Northwood Foundation, United Way, Empathy Factor, Alzheimer's Society of Nova Scotia, Community Justice Society, L'Arche Canada Foundation, the Governor-General's Canadian Leadership Conference, St. Francis Xavier Alumni Association, local school parent-teacher associations, Bedford Cubs and Scouts, St. Ignatius Church Choir, and Parish Council. Ed was nominated for the Volunteer Award by 100 Bedford Men Who Care. This organization was started in 2016 by former Bedford MLA Peter Christie and has managed to give away more than $100,000 to local charities. Ed has served as a senior advisory member for 100 Men Who Care, and his hard work and dedication were significant factors in helping the group achieve the $100,000 milestone. I'd like to thank Ed McHugh for his extensive contributions to life in Bedford and Nova Scotia. Thank you.
The honourable member for Pictou Centre.
Mr. Speaker, you can call him a sanitation engineer, a waste management professional, or a garbage collector. Scott McLean loves working outdoors. 6 days a week you can see Scott serving families, businesses, industries, and community organizations. He continues the tradition of keeping the community clean, providing a very valuable service at the same time. McLean always treats his customers with honesty, integrity, and respect. Scott owns a single private garbage truck service. He can be found zigzagging across the county, carting away the trash and recycling from restaurants, offices, and numerous other places. During his multiple stops in each day, he has become a fixture in his community. He is one of the best known, if not the most humble person in town. He always has a kind and friendly word for all. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Colchester North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Born in Spring Hill in 1930, Morley Bentley grew up in Upper Stewiacke and Brookfield. Graduating from high school in 1947, he first taught school at Birch Hill, Colchester County, on a permissive license because of a shortage of teachers. He graduated from Normal College in 1949 and continued to add to his credentials throughout his life. In 1960, Morley graduated from Pine Hill Divinity Hall and served as a United Church minister for a period spanning 50 years. Morley served in many places during those years. His love of people was returned to him by all in the areas he served. To prove that, an open house was held at Tatamagouche Legion on June 2nd. Whether organizing or leading a choir, teaching school, teaching piano, or serving as a minister, there are few lives in Tatamagouche and the surrounding area that Morley Bentley has not touched. The open house was a well-deserved thank you for his many years of service to the people in the area and beyond. As part of his community celebration and as MLA for Colchester North, I was proud to present Morley with a certificate and to enjoy his storytelling, his quick wit, and his connection to the many communities and folks we share in common. He is a keen and engaged 89-year-old. He is a great example of a life well lived. There is hope for all of us, including the member from Cumberland South.
The honourable member for Colchester Musquenomit Valley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wish to take a moment to congratulate Truro Bearcats forward Luke McMillan. He's from Shorts Lake, on being only the 5th Maritime League player ever to win the $5,000 Canadian Junior Hockey League scholarship. Luke, who was named the Maritime Hockey League Scholastic Player of the Year for 2018-19 and won the Bob Boucher Hockey Assistance Fund for 2017-18, has a lengthy list of academic honors and volunteerism with local programs. I'm proud to see someone like Luke, who was in his 2nd year in the engineering program at the Dalhousie Agricultural Campus, excel in school, in sports, and in the community. His recognition is well earned. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Clare Digby.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again this year, I made my way to Soniaville to cheer on the cyclists at the start of the Grand Fondo. There I was able to meet up with my colleague, the member for Clayton Park, one of the more than 1,000 participants who were cycling in the most popular of 5 rides, the Medeo. At the start, I met many cyclists who make a point of returning year after year to ride the Grand Fondo. They first came to this new cycling event out of curiosity and returned because of the professionalism of the event's organization and the welcome they received while in the area. All along the ride, starting on the coastline of Clare, participants have a great and safe ride, and people from the community encourage them to keep going. I would like to congratulate the organizers as well as all the volunteers and the people of Clare on hosting their 5th Fondo. In a very short time, it has become such a positive impact on the area's economy and tourism, as well as a role in prompting people to try cycling. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Sackville Beaverbank.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, today I acknowledge Norman, a 1-year-old Bernese Mountain Dog, and his owner, Joe Lewis of Middle Sackville. This summer, Mr. Speaker, Joe was out in his backyard doing some yard work when he suddenly had a pumping headache and decided to go in and lay down. However, Norman wouldn't let him go to sleep. Norman continued to bark at the window and kept going back, tugging at Joe to keep him awake. Norman created such a fuss that Joe finally called his sister, who immediately called an ambulance. Joe ended up going into the hospital with a ruptured vein in his brain, but luckily survived to the thanks to his dog, Norman. Mr. Speaker, it's clear that in this particular case, Norman had certainly fulfilled his role as man's best friend, and I wish Joe, the owner, a very speedy recovery. Thank you.
The honourable member for Cape Breton Richmond.
Mr. Speaker, organizers of the 86th Annual Milling Frolic hosted a successful event in Johnstown. The Milling Frolic took place on August 23rd in the Johnstown Parish Hall, and it featured the very talented Kinnan, Betty Lou, and Andrea Beaton. Mr. Speaker, the event included Gaelic singing, milling, a country store, a bake sale, children's games, bingo, and a square dance. Mr. Speaker, the Johnstown Milling Frolic, along with the community's Strawberry Festival, helped to raise the necessary funds to support community infrastructure and programs. These events bring the community together and allow for visitors to experience local and cultural traditions. Mr. Speaker, Johnstown resident Louise Campbell is one of the many community volunteers who take on the responsibility of organizing the frolic, and I ask members of this House to join me in extending our appreciation to her and the organizing committee for another successful event. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Hants East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On June 17, 2017, in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, Michael Barkhouse, originally from Walton, Nova Scotia, was on his way to work when he saw a woman in a kennel with a dog and heard her screaming. He stopped his vehicle, put on leather work gloves, grabbed a wooden stake, and forced open the outer latch on the kennel. He entered the kennel, yelled at the dog, and struggled with it until the dog released the woman. The woman was hospitalized and treated for numerous bites, but thankfully, Michael's injury was only a bruised right hand. As a result of his heroism that day, he received the Carnegie Hero Medal. Mr. Speaker, in 1904, industrialist philanthropist Andrew Carnegie started the Carnegie Hero Fund Commission. This commission awards the Carnegie Hero Medal to individuals in Canada and the U.S. who risk their lives to an extraordinary degree, saving and attempting to save the lives of others. I would like to ask all members of this House to join me in thanking Michael for his courageous actions and congratulating him on receiving this prestigious award. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Argyle-Barrington.
Mr. Speaker, this week from October 6th to 12th is Fire Prevention Week. This year's theme is Not Every Hero Wears a Cape. Plan and practice your escape. Fire Prevention Week is a week to remember safe practices. Fires spread very quickly, and you may only have as little as a couple minutes to escape. Plan and practice your escape. This week is also an opportunity to thank firefighters, career and volunteer alike across Nova Scotia for their continued dedication to our safety and protection. Mr. Speaker, I ask all members of this House of Assembly to join me in thanking Nova Scotia's firefighters for their commitment and fire suppression and protecting Nova Scotians' lives and property 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Guysborough, Eastern Shore, Tracadie.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today in recognition of the 5th Canso Scouts Troop, which celebrated its 50th year of scouting in September. The charter was established in 1970 with hundreds of youth going through the Scouts Canada program, developing memories and friendships forged through countless campfires, hikes, and overnight camps. Canso Scouts is a place where kids can gain leadership skills by leading their peers on meaningful adventures in nature. The Canso Scout Troop is youth-led, meaning our Scouts develop their own program and make their own path to outdoor adventure by setting their own goals, creating organized plans to achieve success in their goals, and collectively reflecting on their experience and personal development. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to congratulate the Canso Scouts and their leader, Harold Roberts, for achieving this exceptional milestone, to thank them for all they do to develop our youth into confident, capable, and empowered young leaders of tomorrow, and to wish them 50 more years of scouting. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to thank the Canning Volunteer Fire Department for successfully fighting a major fire in Canning early this past Sunday morning. 3 buildings were destroyed in what has been reported to be a suspicious fire, likely caused by arson. Fire crews from numerous local fire departments supplied mutual aid and backup as 75 firefighters fought on the scene. Canning Chief Jeff Scaling directed the firefighters in putting out the fire and saving neighbouring buildings. 3 times in Canning's history, the village has burned down to the spread of fire from one building to another. Not this time, Mr. Speaker. I ask all members to join me in congratulating the volunteer firefighters of the Valley and the Canning Fire Department for their efforts this weekend on behalf of the community.
The honourable member for Hants West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to rise to also recognize our volunteer firefighters as well as our paid firefighters right across this province, Mr. Speaker, who work every day protecting life and property here in Nova Scotia. And as others have mentioned, I want to thank the honourable member for Argyll-Barrington as well as Kings North for their recognition of our fire service personnel and also our emergency service personnel, Mr. Speaker, who often attend scenes like the honourable member just described in Canning over the weekend, standing by protecting our firefighters who are out there as well when injuries occur. So on behalf of all of the members here in the House, Mr. Speaker, I would ask that they again thank all of our emergency service personnel who are working right across this province. Thank you.
The honourable member for Halifax Armdale.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to congratulate George and Genevieve Lewin of Halifax Armdale on the occasion of their 50th anniversary. Originally hailing from Kfar, Lebanon, George immigrated to Canada with his family in 1958, sailing on an Italian fleeter, Saturnia, for a 14-day period. The family docked at Pier 21 in Halifax on January 10, 1959, and were hosted by George's late aunt Sophia as they made their plans to settle in Canada. George would soon enter the local real estate business, building a new life here in Nova Scotia. A decade later, George would return to his native Lebanon. There, he met the love of his life, Genevieve, originally from Ain Hirshi, and they married on October 12, 1969. Mr. Speaker, they tell me they first met me as a small child back in 1969 when they visited my family in North Lebanon on their honeymoon. Today, the proud couple have 6 children, 15, soon to be 16 grandchildren, and are active members of the community. To George, Genevieve, and entire family, congratulations on this milestone, and God bless all your family. Thank you.
The honourable member for Inverness.
Mr. Speaker, there have been a lot of great hockey players who have come out of Nova Scotia over the past number of years, but I believe one to watch is Colton Ellis of River Dennis. He was just drafted by the St. Louis Blues, maybe with some influence of Al McGuinness, 93rd overall in this year's NHL entry draft. That is an achievement in itself, but let us acknowledge that no matter what level of play he has entered, he has excelled. He was the top goaltender in the Nova Scotia Major Bantam League. He won a national midget championship with the Cape Breton West Islanders, and he became the starting goaltender at the age of 17 in his first year with the Rimouski Oceanic of the Quebec Major Junior League. Colton will eventually have his chance to crack the Blues lineup, and his family and his skills will be there for him when the time comes. Let us congratulate Colton and the Ellis and Campbell families on these achievements and wish him well in the years ahead.
The honourable member for Timberley Prospect.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to recognize Bob Angus and Ian Angus of Timberley. This dynamic father and son team exemplifies the essences of community spirit. Bob enjoyed a successful career as a real estate agent, focusing his business in the BLT area. Recognizing the value of building and nurturing a vibrant community, Bob has spent years engaging and connecting residents in the community, forming homeowners associations, and helping organize community events. Although Bob is retired from his day job, his work continues twofold in the work he continues and into the next generation with his son, Ian. Ian has stepped up into his father's footsteps professionally as a realtor and socially through his community work. Together, Bob and Ian continue to develop community spirit by organizing community events that enhance the desirability of the area. Their most recent contribution was to the Timberley Food Truck Rally in September as premier supporters of the event, not only assisting with finances, but also participating in all the many logistical considerations with my office to organize an event which fed over 3,000 guests. I'd like the members of the Nova Scotia Host Assembly to join me in thanking Bob and Ian and Angus for their hard work, commitment, and many contributions to our community. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Northside Westmount.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the members of this House may have noticed that things have been a bit quieter so far this session. I think we all know that that has a lot to do with my predecessor being out of the legislature and pursuing federal politics. Eddie Orrell is a longtime friend of mine, and I'd like to acknowledge and thank him on behalf of myself and the residents of Northside Westmount for his tireless dedication and years of service. His selflessness in serving his constituents is something I hope to replicate, and I certainly have impressive shoes to fill. I wish him nothing but the best in the upcoming federal election and trust that he will come home with a victory in Sydney, Victoria. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Halifax Needham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to acknowledge how poverty can prevent Nova Scotians from fully accessing our healthcare system. We recently assisted a constituent who was approved for an out-of-province procedure for which he would be reimbursed, but he had no access to the extra funds to pay the upfront costs. That is why he, I, and my constituency staff are so grateful to the Armdale Fairview Rockingham Lions Club. They were able to make a highly unusual loan and offer support where government and nonprofits could not. We have other constituents, particularly seniors, who are struggling with a mix of poverty and healthcare concerns. When the province forces income assistance recipients to apply for CPP at age 60, for example, they are consigning seniors to senior years on precariously low incomes, fretting over ambulance fees and pharmacare copays, and in social isolation. I would urge all of us to strive to do better.
The honourable member for Sydney Whitney Pier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On the weekend at home, there was a great event that was held in the community to support hospice palliative care. Community leaders were matched with dance partners for a new event called Dancing with the Stars in support of hospice. It was a sellout event, and Mr. Speaker, over $170,000 was raised that evening to support the dream of a new building in the community, a new hospice. So to everybody involved, congratulations on a great event. They are one step closer to a new hospice, and as a government, we're proud to support them to cover the operating costs. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Cumberland South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to acknowledge the unveiling of the mural on a building that we like to call Wild Blueberry Corner in Oxford. The town and the Cumberland Performing Arts Group joined forces to dress up the corner with a large painting that depicts the musical talents of the community while tipping its hat to the town's status as the Wild Blueberry Capital of Canada by scattering blueberries amid the notes and the sheet music on the mural. 15-year-old Jada Ripley's design was selected from a competition initiated by Ruth Collins, Director of Cumberland Performing Arts. Jada was joined by Julia Gill to produce the 12 by 16-foot mural, which was unveiled on August 24th. I ask the House to join me in congratulating Jada Ripley, Julia Gill, and everyone that was involved from start to finish on this outstanding piece of art. Thank you very much.
The honourable member for Fairview Clayton Park.
Mr. Speaker, as I've mentioned before, many of my residents were left without power and unable to cook any meals days after Hurricane Dorian. However, Joseph House Superstore was up for the challenge. On September 9th, Joe House Superstore opened its PC cooking school for Fairview residents to relax, plug in, and enjoy free complimentary coffee, tea, and snacks. On September 11th, staff posted on Facebook and encouraged those without power or food to come to the PC cooking school to enjoy some free chili. They even extended their hours to accommodate anyone and everyone. Not only was our local superstore open for residents immediately following the hurricane, but they continued to recognize the need and provided for individuals and families days after. Mr. Speaker, I ask the members of this House of Assembly join me in thanking Joseph House Superstore for stepping up for our community in the wake of Hurricane Dorian. Thank you.
The honourable member for Cumberland North.
Mr. Speaker, today I rise to recognize Mrs. Kathy Bates, a resident of Malagash. She organized a community meeting so that local residents could have their voices heard and ask questions about their community. It's important for residents to value and take pride in their community in hopes that it can prosper and grow. Kathy advocated on behalf of better internet service for both homes and businesses, as well as improvements for local roads and roadsides. Today, please join me in thanking Kathy Bates for her commitment to her community in Malagash. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Waverley Fall River Beaverbank.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize and to congratulate the Reverend Duncan McMaster on receiving his Scouting certificate in recognition of his 55 years of service to the Scouting organization. Scouting has been a great interest of Father McMaster, as noted by his active involvement in many achievements. Father McMaster has held many positions in the organization of local, national, and international levels. Mr. Speaker, please join me in thanking Father McMaster on his 55 years of service to the Scouting Canada.
The honourable member for Queens Shelburne.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For many years, Deborah Sponicle-Taylor of Liverpool has been inspiring and teaching young artists in Queens County. A very talented artist in her own right and affectionately known by her students as Debbie Doodles, she encourages youngsters to explore and develop their own artistic skills and styles. Her love for her kids and her relaxed style create an incredibly nurturing environment for their creativity. Each year, Debbie and her husband Chuck produce a youth art show and sale to showcase her students' work, and the pride of their young faces speaks volumes. Mr. Speaker, I would like to recognize and applaud Deb for all that she does in her community to cultivate the arts and to inspire, teach, and mentor her students. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Chester St. Margaret's.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize and congratulate Mr. Bob Found and Mrs. Barbara Wilkes, who earlier this summer held 2 garage sales in support of the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, or the SPCA. Bob and Barbara organized residents of Indian Harbor to gather together their collectibles and antiques, then held 2 weekends of garage sales during July. When customers learned where the money earned from the sales was destined, many decided to donate their personal change. The total amount that Mr. Found and Ms. Wilkes donated was over $1,100. The SPCA will put the donated funds toward their 4 pillars of service, which include animal rescue, shelter, veterinary care, and rehabilitation. Funds from this yard sale, as well as all donations, are a vital part of the operations of this worthy association. Mr. Speaker, I invite the members of the House of Assembly to join me in recognizing, congratulating, and thanking Mr. Bob Found and Mrs. Barbara Wilkes for their generous support of the Nova Scotia SPCA. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Just before we move on to the next member statement, I want to draw everybody's attention to the Speaker's Gallery, where we're joined today by a special guest, the Honourable John Mercer Reid, former Member of Parliament for Kenora Rainy River, served for 19 years in our federal parliament. Mr. Reid was the Minister of Federal Provincial Relations from 1978 to 1979, and he served as the Information Commissioner of Canada from 1998 to 2006. And he does have a Nova Scotia connection, a couple. He was the Parliamentary Secretary to the Honourable Alan J. McEachran. As well, he's accompanied by his daughter, who is married to a local, Dr. Todd Howlett, who's the Chief of Medical Staff at the Dartmouth General. So I'd like to ask the honourable members to rise and give a warm welcome. Mr. Reid. The honourable member for Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to welcome Family First Medical, a local Nova Scotia-based family business, to their newest location here in Lower Sackville. Their 5 locations are owned and managed by the family member, Kimberly Manette. The Sackville office is managed by respiratory therapist, Holly Mitchell. Family First Medical provides in-home medical care products and services, including 24-hour oxygen, emergency home oxygen, and CPAP therapy, personal emergency response systems, and elevators to the residents of Lower Sackville and the surrounding areas. Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask all members of this Legislative Assembly to take this opportunity to congratulate Kimberly and the staff of Family First Medical, Lower Sackville, and wish them continued success in the future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Halifax Atlantic.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to speak of an amazing young man from Williamswood, 16-year-old Ethan Eastwood, a recent high school graduate at 16 years old, and this year's recipient of Dalhousie University Schuler Leadership Award. The Schuler Leader Award is a scholarship offered to the most promising. You just gave me the. Okay, that's it.
Order, please. The time allotted for member statements has expired. We'll now move on to oral questions put by members to ministers. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition. The Honourable Member for Sydney River, Myra Lewisburg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This past weekend, I had a number of constituents contact me. It was very upsetting for myself. The healthcare crisis is not news to Nova Scotians or the members of this House. We constantly hear of ways the system is currently failing. This past Friday, we heard the Cape Breton Regional Hospital was so overrun that patients exceeded the number of beds. And I do have a document here that I would like to table for that. We're now using the space to set aside for children to accommodate a crisis that this government refuses to acknowledge based on the fact that there's adult inpatients admitted to a pediatrics ward. My question to the Minister of Health, does he believe it is acceptable for adult patients to take up pediatric beds? Thank you.
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Honourable for the question. Mr. Speaker, he highlights the exact reason why we've made the largest investment in healthcare infrastructure in Cape Breton Island, Mr. Speaker. We know the emergency room. We know, Mr. Speaker, the emergency room in Cape Breton needs to be doubled, Mr. Speaker. We know today there's a tenders going out where people are being asked to make a tender so we can continue to make that expansion. We're continuing to work with our healthcare providers to provide the support in communities. We'll see the expansion in Glace Bay. And we'll see, Mr. Speaker, 2 new facilities that will be built that will provide the care that reflects the realities of today, Mr. Speaker, not in 1950, but, Mr. Speaker, will prepare that community and this province for the next 50 years.
The Honourable Member for Sydney River, Myra Lewisburg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Healthcare concerns at Cape Breton haven't been appeased by major infrastructure announcements that are years in the distance. Cape Bretoners, as I've heard on the doorstep many times, are concerned about the healthcare they cannot receive today. They're not concerned about shiny new buildings built for the future. Their concerns are about closures at Northside, Waterford, and Glace Bay ER that was open for 4 days this summer. Cape Bretoners understand the healthcare crisis, and they know the solution to hallway medicine isn't better hallways. My question for the Minister or the Premier is, does he have a solution for Cape Bretoners not 10 years down the road, but for today? Thank you.
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member is highlighting another important point, Mr. Speaker. That successive governments, Mr. Speaker, have tried to put a Band-Aid on the challenges facing healthcare across our province. We've heard from healthcare providers from one end of the province to the other. They required an investment in infrastructure. It will help to provide support, Mr. Speaker, to communities across this province. It will also help us to continue to attract and retain healthcare providers, Mr. Speaker. We can't just think about today, Mr. Speaker. We have to ensure that we have healthcare providers for the next 50 years, and the infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, has to reflect the reality of how people want to practice today, the requirements that are required today, Mr. Speaker, and we'll continue to make those investments, Mr. Speaker. Regardless of how often, Mr. Speaker, we're criticized by the opposition members, we're starting to hear from community members across this province in communities who say, quite frankly, that is the right investment we should be making, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, on the weekend, Dr. Bob Martell published a piece in the paper, which I'll table, where he compared preparations for Hurricane Dorian to preparations in our emergency rooms for the coming annual flu season. And he wasn't a favorable comparison he made. He wrote that while companies and governments and people began preparations just as soon as, if not before, the hurricane began to move north from the Bahamas, and we were blessed to come out of the storm with no loss of life, that every year in the flu season, on the other hand, people pass away because emergency rooms are inadequately prepared for the increased demands the flu season places on ERs. Mr. Speaker, with the flu season looming, is the Premier confident our emergency rooms this year are going to be prepared for the coming load?
The Honourable Premier.
Yes.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we did better with Dorian than we did with Juan because we learned from the experience with Juan and our preparations as a result were improved. But, Mr. Speaker, our preparations, contrary to the Premier's confidence, were not all that wonderful in last year's flu season as far as emergency room overcrowding was concerned. Now, Dr. Martel writes about this and about how last flu season, NSHA supervisors at the Valley Regional Hospital asked physicians in ERs to attend to patients on stretchers in the hallways because the overcapacity situation was so great. And one day at the end of the last season in the Valley, the emergency room at that hospital was 557% overcapacity. So I want to ask the Premier, what has the government learned from the poor performance with ER overcrowding last year for doing better this time round?
The Honourable Premier.
Speaker, the honourable member raises an important question. Mr. Speaker, there's been a tremendous amount of preparation with healthcare providers across this province to continue to remind all Nova Scotians the importance of receiving the flu shot. Mr. Speaker, they particularly deal with vulnerable populations that are in their clinics. Mr. Speaker, we continue to provide that support. He would know every time we go through, there's a different strain associated with a flu, causes challenges associated with delivering the vaccines, Mr. Speaker. Each time that happens, we continue to make sure that we maximize the use of the vaccines. We make sure that Nova Scotians recognize getting the flu shot early is an important step. It's why we've continued to work with pharmacists to broaden the ability for Nova Scotians to be able to access, to be able to get the vaccine, Mr. Speaker, to get their flu shot. And we'll continue to make sure that we continue to encourage Nova Scotians to be prepared.
The Honourable Leader of the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, the concern that is being pressed here is not about the vaccine, but about the negative effect of ER overcrowding on proper service during the flu season. Now, it's very fair for people to be concerned about this. When 1/5 of our hospital beds are taken up with people who are supposed to be in nursing homes, so ERs have no place to admit those patients, and when 85% of the nurses in the province say that once a week at least they're working short on their shifts. Mr. Speaker, any competent person can see that these conditions are warning signs. So I want to ask the Premier why his government continues to ignore these very real signals.
The Honourable Premier.
I want to thank the honourable for the question, Mr. Speaker. Contrary to what he's saying in his statement, quite frankly, Mr. Speaker, we continue to ensure that we provide more people to provide the flu shot. In one of his earlier questions, talks about preparation. That's exactly what Nova Scotians need to do, Mr. Speaker. He also talked about, Mr. Speaker, there are those Nova Scotians, even with all of that work, still continue to track the virus. I have all the confidence, Mr. Speaker, in our healthcare providers across this province to ensure they have the appropriate supports around them to deliver that service. He's also highlighting something, Mr. Speaker, around the emergency rooms. This government, Mr. Speaker, has made the largest single investment in healthcare infrastructure in this province's history, Mr. Speaker. Dealing with, Mr. Speaker, the QE2, Mr. Speaker, when they were in government, they ignored the fact. This government is not ignoring it, Mr. Speaker. We're not only dealing with the challenges of today, but we're preparing for the next 50 years, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, many Nova Scotians were surprised by the Premier's recent comments that his government was winning at doctor recruitment. I'll table the Premier's comments there. Doctors might also be surprised by that comment. Earlier this year, we learned that doctors sent some dismal numbers back to the Nova Scotia Health Authority in a survey of physician engagement. 72% of community physicians and 60% of facility-based physicians disagreed with the statement, "I trust the NSHA to work effectively to enact meaningful changes." I'll table that too, Mr. Speaker. That doesn't count as a win, Mr. Speaker, by my math, but by the Premier's math, it may. I'd like to ask the Premier, does a winning healthcare system include one where the vast majority of physicians don't trust the Nova Scotia Health Authority to make meaningful change?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for the question. Mr. Speaker, he is raising an important issue. Mr. Speaker, what I was referring to, the fact of the matter is the honourable member stood on his feet and said there were 100,000 Nova Scotians without access to a family doctor. He now is acknowledging, Mr. Speaker, that number is near $50,000. That number continues to go down. We recognize there's more work to do, Mr. Speaker. That's why we're currently at our second trip into the UK to attract more physicians to come into this province. I want to remind the honourable member we're number 4 in the country when it comes to attaching patients to primary caregivers. At the same time, though, he is highlighting an important factor. There are healthcare providers across the province have acknowledged, Mr. Speaker, they're unhappy with the engagement they've had with the Health Authority, Mr. Speaker. Dr. Mary, who has come on as the Deputy Minister of Health, has continued to work in collaboration with them. He would also know the head of Doctors Nova Scotia has acknowledged physicians have lost confidence in some of the work Doctors Nova Scotia is doing. That's why we're working very hard try to get a negotiated deal, Mr. Speaker, so we can get on with continuing to improve the healthcare infrastructure of this province and ensure, Mr. Speaker, that the very investments we're making around the ER in Cape Breton, the one here in Halifax, is about infrastructure, Mr. Speaker, so the healthcare doctors know have the places to practice.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
There's only one conclusion from the Premier's comments, Mr. Speaker. The Premier is out of touch. I'll remind the Premier that this is not, it's not our caucus. It's not our caucus that's giving the Premier, his government, and the Nova Scotia Health Authority a failing grade on engagement. It's the providers on the front lines. The same survey of physicians indicated that 76% of community physicians disagree with the statement, "I feel well informed about wider organizational change and strategic planning in the Nova Scotia Health Authority." Now, I'm sure the Premier knows that everyone has to be rowing in the same direction if you want to get anywhere. What doctors are telling the Premier and the Minister of Health and the Health Authority is, you don't even know how to tell us where the oars are, let alone what direction we're going. I'd like to ask the Premier, does a winning healthcare system include a majority of community doctors who feel completely out of the loop on the Health Authority's strategic planning and overall direction for healthcare?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, we continue to work with healthcare providers across the province, Mr. Speaker, to improve the healthcare infrastructure. We've heard loud and clear from healthcare teams, not just doctors, nurse practitioners, family practice nurses, dietitians, Mr. Speaker, that for far too long in communities across this province, government ignored the fact they do not have the appropriate infrastructure to be able to attract and retain new healthcare providers, Mr. Speaker. Despite all of what the opposition might want to say, the fact of the matter is healthcare teams from one end of this province to the other are helping us ensure that the largest investment in infrastructure is, Mr. Speaker, is being led and supported by healthcare teams from one end of this province to the other. Are there those who are opposed to that, Mr. Speaker? Yes, they are, and many of them are sitting across the aisle from us, Mr. Speaker. The fact of the matter is we need to continue to make these investments to ensure that we can attract and retain healthcare providers, Mr. Speaker, inside of this province. And the reality of it is, Mr. Speaker, we're continuing to make progress. We know there's more work to do, Mr. Speaker, but no matter how often they criticize us, Mr. Speaker, we're working with those physicians and healthcare teams to ensure that, Mr. Speaker, we're thinking of the next 50 years, not the last 50.
The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
The reason the healthcare crisis continues to get worse and worse is exactly because of answers like that. These aren't our numbers. It's not our numbers. It's not the opposition. It's frontline healthcare professionals that have given up on this Premier's ability to manage a proper healthcare system. But guess what? It's not only us. It's not only the doctors. It's also the Auditor General that's asking questions. The Auditor General had this recommendation in 2016 for the NSHA. The Health Authority should tell Nova Scotians what they should expect from their healthcare system, including what level of service to expect in communities across the province. I can table that too for the Premier, since he's always reluctant to understand the facts in front of him. But the Nova Scotia Health Authority accepted that recommendation. But if we jump ahead a couple of years, I just told you the engagement numbers, very, very low on people's confidence in this government. Does the Premier have a plan to fix the Health Authority's ongoing communication failures, and will the Premier himself acknowledge the healthcare crisis we have?
The Honourable Premier.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable member would know we're the first government speaker to put together a health committee to televise, Mr. Speaker, so all Nova Scotians can hear that, Mr. Speaker, sit in this very Mr. Speaker, we continue to call before that committee. He has every opportunity to call the Health Authority, the Department of Health, so that he can engage them, Mr. Speaker. What we do know for a fact Mr. Speaker, that Dr. Mary has been out engaging
Order, please. The Honourable Premier has the floor.
We do know, in fact, Mr. Speaker, Dr. Mary has been out engaging with frontline healthcare providers across the province. They've been very clear, Mr. Speaker, to continue to make the investments. Mr. Speaker, the honourable member can attack the most reputable physician in this province than Dr. Mary, who's led our medical school, who's been out engaging, Mr. Speaker, but the reality of it is...
Order, please. The Honourable Premier has the floor.
The reality of it is, Mr. Speaker, we are making progress when it comes to ensuring that we're providing the right infrastructure, that we are attracting the right healthcare teams across the province, Mr. Speaker. We know there's more work to do. We'll continue to make sure we do that. It is my hope, Mr. Speaker, that we'll continue to make sure that we provide the appropriate compensation package for physicians, and we'll be able to announce that very soon.
The Honourable Member for Cape Breton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Health and Wellness. On Friday, there were so many patients admitted to the emergency room at the Cape Breton Regional Hospital that some adult patients were forced to the pediatric floor. The pediatric floor is supposed to be a locked unit, but at the Cape Breton Regional, where dangerous overcrowding is a daily occurrence, the unit is being used as an overflow space. Mr. Speaker, is the minister concerned that overcrowding at the Regional Hospital Emergency Department is compromising care for other patients?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I thank the member for the question. Indeed, ensuring that Nova Scotians receive the care that they need throughout our healthcare system, whether that's in primary care, emergency or acute care services, Mr. Speaker, throughout the entire healthcare spectrum. But the fact is, Mr. Speaker, when the needs arise, again, as part of ensuring that the care is provided, those on the front line, the administrators within the facilities, make decisions on the ground operationally to ensure that they use the resources that they have, to ensure that the care is available to be provided to Nova Scotians. I believe that's the scenario and what took place this past weekend that the members described.
The Honourable Member for Cape Breton Centre.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I guess that would include hallway medicine as well. Mr. Speaker, the ER at the Regional is dangerously overcrowded on a regular basis. People seeking care and healthcare workers alike are at risk. These aren't one-off situations. It's par for the course, and it's happening while more than 50 ER beds sit empty at the Glace Bay, Northside, and New Waterford hospitals. This is where the admitted patients should be, Mr. Speaker, not in pediatrics with children. People deserve to know what's going on and just how serious this situation actually is. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister of Health and Wellness please table a list of dates and times the Cape Breton Regional Hospital Emergency Room reached dangerously overcrowded status on the National Emergency Department overcrowding scale since January 2019? And I know, Mr. Speaker, it's almost been daily.
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for her question. As the member indicated, the challenges with overcrowding and the pressures at the Emergency Department, Cape Breton Regional Hospital, have been ongoing for many years. In fact, Mr. Speaker, as I've explained to the members here previously, one of my first visits to a regional hospital as Minister of Health back in 2017 was to the Cape Breton Regional Hospital. One of the main focal points of that visit and the tour of the facility, Mr. Speaker, was the Emergency Department. And what I was told by those frontline healthcare professionals during that meeting was if we do anything with Cape Breton Regional Hospital, the most important thing was to expand that emergency department, Mr. Speaker. It was not adequate. It was not designed. It is not a structure that supports the workflow of modern emergency medicine, and it does not have enough space. And that's why we're committed to doubling the size of that emergency department, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister responsible for the Nova Scotia Gaming Corporation. The Atlantic Lottery Corp has long been considered a working example of interprovincial cooperation. It includes 4 provincial governments working together even if party banners differ. And the Atlantic Lotto Corp has always been a nonpartisan organization simply because it has to be. Despite this, the Atlantic Lotto has used its considerable advertising power to highlight the federal Liberal candidate for King's Hants. And I will table that, Mr. Speaker. So my question to the Minister responsible for the Nova Scotia Gaming Corp, is she aware that the Atlantic Lotto has been engaged in political advertising?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and to the member opposite. The ALC is certainly four provinces that work together with the Atlantic Lotto Corp. Within Nova Scotia, there is a gaming corp that does facilitate and oversee the gaming activities in this province. I have every bit of confidence, Mr. Speaker, that the Gaming Corp is doing what was within their mandate, and they will continue to make sure that we have a fair gaming practice in this province.
The honourable member for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the minister for that answer, but I am skeptical. We are coming upon 5 months since the King's Hants Liberal candidate was nominated. That's more than enough time to adjust, postpone or cancel a local advertising campaign. I'm struggling to understand how this type of oversight could have been allowed. I don't have to explain how it looks to have a provincial lottery revenue supporting a candidate of the government's federal cousin. So my question for the minister is, who's responsible for these ads going ahead, and will the minister take action to see this ill-advised campaign stopped?
The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Honourable for the question. I think all members of this House recognize Atlantic Lotto should not be supporting any particular candidate, Mr. Speaker. But the reality of it is, what he tabled here is that Atlantic Lotto, quite frankly, is supporting Tidefest, an organization in that community. They support that. What the honourable member happens to be someone, and it was prior to the federal campaign, Mr. Speaker. It is a big stretch, unless the honourable member suggests that Atlantic Lotto shouldn't be investing in this community.
Still running now. The honourable member for Queens Shelburne.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture. Our fisheries are so important to our economy, but yesterday a story from Cook's Aquaculture Hatchery in Maine raised concerns. CBC reported that an unacceptable incident had been caught on hidden cameras at Cook's Hatchery in Maine, and I'll table that document. In a nearly 5-minute video, hatchery salmon are smashed against posts and stomped on, and some salmon appear to be diseased. The CEO of Cook said he was disappointed and deeply saddened by the footage, and I'll admit, I agree with him. But I'm also concerned about what else is going on and what we didn't have hidden cameras to see. My question for the minister is, what specific safeguards are in place to prevent something like this from happening in the Cook operations in Nova Scotia?
The Honourable Minister of Aquaculture.
Thank you very much, and it's a very important question. And again, this is not acceptable behavior by anybody at any time, any place. However, in Nova Scotia, number one, it's a land-based operation, a hatchery, and Cook has no hatcheries in Nova Scotia. Aside from that, our farm plan that's in place for every onshore-based or ocean-based aquaculture site addresses these issues, and our veterinarians visit the sites on a regular basis to ensure that none of this happens in Nova Scotia. If they do find there's anything wrong, the Department of Environment goes in and can lay charges and write tickets and even accelerate it from there if there is a situation like that, but we've never seen one.
The honourable member for Queens Shelburne.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I understand that there are no hatcheries in Nova Scotia, but Cook Aquaculture does have operations in the province, and they have plans to expand their operations in the province. They're hoping to build a salmon processing plant here, as well expand their existing farm that they have in Liverpool Harbour. Aquaculture is an important business for our province and an important employer in my region, but it's hard to see past the negative headlines. Reading stories of unacceptable incidents at Cook hatcheries alongside expansion plans just doesn't sit well. My question is, given the provincial economic interest in aquaculture expansion, does the minister feel the department is positioned for effective oversight of Cook's operations?
The Honourable Minister of Aquaculture.
Definitely yes. We have some of the strongest regulations in the country and indeed the world. To ensure that we have the environment looked after properly, animal welfare rights looked after properly, and indeed the businesses have to operate in Nova Scotia responsibly. And when I became minister 5 or 6 years ago, at that time we had no ability to take leases and licenses away. I do have that power today, and I will exercise it at any time if an operator doesn't perform the way they should.
The honourable member for Kings North.
My question is for the Minister of Agriculture, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on February 25th, the government announced a $16.7 million frost loss program to help farmers recover from crops that were lost in the late frost of 2018. This program was announced so many months after the crop losses. I'll admit I was skeptical on how successful it would really be. By the time the program was announced, many farmers had pushed on and found their own ways to try to address the financial losses. So my question for the minister is, Mr. Speaker, can the minister tell the House how many participants this program had and what metrics the department used to determine if the program was a success or failure?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you very much. It's a very important question. That frost loss did indeed cost a lot of our farmers a lot of problems, and indeed continues on into this year, maybe into next year. What I can tell you is I can provide the information on how many people applied, how many were approved, and all that information. But of the $16 million that we provided, just over $10 million was claimed by the farmers, and all the applications that come in that met the requirements, and I believe that was everybody that applied, did receive compensation based on their losses.
The Honourable Member for Kings North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, to the Minister for that answer. In fact, I can table that. In fact, just over $9 million, according to the information I have from a FOIPOP, was spent on the frost loss program. The government announcement estimated that there had been $34 million in losses to the industry. Many farmers believe the late introduction of the program eligibility, so it was announced in February 25th, and it had to be all wrapped up by March, the end of March, was a factor that discouraged broader participation. There were serious losses to these farmers and their crops, and action should have been taken immediately, not months later. Will the minister admit the gulf between the losses and uptake of the frost loss program suggests the program was poorly executed?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
I believe that the program was done properly, was done in a timely manner, the best we could, because we had to accumulate a lot of information from the farms. We had to accumulate that information, make sure that the claims were accurate. The claims, we had to go back to some of the farmers 4 or 5 times, and indeed everybody that did apply, and I've talked to all kinds of farmers about this, were very happy with the program and indeed did satisfy what needed to be done to help them get through the next year.
The Honourable Member for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, Select Nova Scotia is one of the main ways the provinces encourage Nova Scotians to buy local products, and buying local benefits producers and the broader economy. Aside from supporting your friends and neighbours, eating more local food is positive for the environment, which is why it's an AGSPA goal. So it was shocking to see that last year Select Nova Scotia received no advances to its revenue account. As a result, the funds in Select Nova Scotia have been nearly depleted, and I will table that. My question for the minister is, given that Select Nova Scotia seems to have stopped receiving advances to its revenue account, why does the minister have an alternative plan for increasing support for local food growers?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Yes.
The Honourable Minister for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, I'm not sure whether to thank you for that answer or not. We all know that the merits of shopping local, supporting local. Buying local is a way to increase both demand and profitability for local agricultural operators. A recent study by this government showed that they have been unable to increase the awareness or demand for locally grown products. So clearly, something needs to change. Over the summer, there were a couple of advertisements for positions with Perennia to hire people to buy local programs. Does the minister have a real plan for supporting local agriculture in the province, or is he simply leaning on the on Perennia to do the heavy lifting on that?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Well, thank you very much. It's a very important topic. Buy local is extremely important to the farmers in Nova Scotia and the people of Nova Scotia. Not just because the farmers can make money on it, which is really, really important, but also as a food supply. We've got to make sure we have a big enough food supply and a steady food supply for all Nova Scotians in case an emergency happened that we can feed Nova Scotia. We are working on a new program that will replace Select Nova Scotia, and when the time comes, we're ready to announce it, which should be another few months. We'll be only too glad to share all the benefits from it.
The Honourable House Leader for the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Finance. Today marks 31 days since Hurricane Dorian hit and since the infamous crane from the building under development by Waddy Fairs crumpled onto South Park Street. Last week, The government renewed the localized state of emergency to continue assuming responsibility for the crane's removal, and undoubtedly, the crane needs to come down as quickly and as safely as possible, but eventually, Mr. Speaker, we will need to account for the cost of the government taking over that removal. Mr. Speaker, can the minister please share the estimated cost, which I'm assuming she has, for assuming responsibility for that removal, and can she assure Nova Scotians unequivocally that the government will recover that cost?
The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to the member's question, we made it very clear that declaring a localized state of emergency in that particular area was designed solely and initially for protection of people and property. We stand by that. That area had to be secured. The next step was the removal of that crane had to take place. We wanted to make sure that there was a proper assessment, that the crane could be removed safely. Responsibility for that was given to TIR because we did not want to have any more of a delay. We want those people who have been displaced from their business or for their home to be able to get back as quickly as possible, and in order for that to happen, it has to be a safe environment.
The Honourable House Leader for the New Democratic Party.
Mr. Speaker, I note that I got no cost estimate and no guarantee of recovering that cost. But, Mr. Speaker, my second question is for the Minister of Business. Many people impacted by this situation are in a terrible spot. While the government is not able to confirm that it will recoup any expenses covering a developer's accident, when asked what's available for small businesses suffering this accident, the Premier has said that they should check their insurance policies. Not all of the small business owners affected have business interruption insurance, the only type that would cover this, and if they do, it is limited. Revenue has ceased for those businesses, Mr. Speaker, for 31 days, but they still have rent, wages, utilities, and inventory to pay. Mr. Speaker, can the minister tell us what support is available for these small businesses who may be on the hook for thousands of dollars in costs related to the crane collapse?
The Honourable Minister of Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for the question. Obviously, this is of great concern for many departments, for our government, with respect to business. Anytime there's an impact, first of all, public safety is number one, but anytime there's an impact on business, it certainly is something that we have to address and make sure that we're doing everything we can. The reality is that this is an unfortunate event. Insurance is at play in terms of what can be recouped. The conversations are ongoing around business with my department and what potential role we have. But again, first and foremost, right now, it's about the safety of the individuals, the safety of the people, and getting this crane removed as quickly as we can. That's the number one priority, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
The Honourable Member for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, communities need help adapting to frequent intensifying weather events. The dike system in Nova Scotia protects many communities and large swaths of farmland. In April, this government committed to $56.9 million to improve 64 kilometres of dike lands over 10 years, and I'll table that. This investment is welcome, but some stakeholders on the ground express confusion as to how the decision came about. And my question for the minister is this: what consultations were held with stakeholders prior to the announcement, and was the Agricultural Marshland Conservation Commission involved in the decision-making process?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
The $54 million the member is talking about is money that we have to have in conjunction with New Brunswick to address a serious concern that both provinces have.
The Honourable Member for Kings North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I take it the Agricultural Marshland Conservation Commission was not consulted then. Mr. Speaker, a recent FOIPOP obtained by our caucus reveals that most of the projects are in the Cumberland Basin, Cobequid Bay, Southern Bight, and Annapolis River systems, and I'll table that. These projects are intended to be rolled out over the next 10 years. However, most of the funding is backloaded, and that is years away. Most of this is years away. Experts have expressed that action needs to happen now to protect our coastline, so the delay in action is concerning. As we saw with the Hansport Abateau, delay in maintenance just leads to higher costs down the road. So my question for the minister is this: if protecting our coastlines is truly a priority for this government, why is it taking years to put shovels in the ground?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
The work that's being done on the dikes, as we move forward, it will be done as a need is for each individual dike.
The Honourable Member for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Transportation. Mr. Speaker, last January, after an abattoir in the Halfway River was breached, the MLA for the area promised residents of Hantsport and Mount Denson the province would build a new abattoir. What the department finally built was a culvert. Within a few months, the culvert was failing and a decision was made to put doors on the culvert, turning it into an abattoir. The abattoir that had served the area for more than a century, the previous one had served the area for more than a century and was the structure the residents had wanted all along. My question for the Minister of Transportation, how did his department get it so wrong, insisting on a culvert wasn't the appropriate structure?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I really want to thank the people in the Hantsport area for their patience in dealing with this particular situation. We are in there currently doing some fine-tuning of that structure that's in there. We made a provision in the original design to be able to add gates, which we have done. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the Minister for that answer. The residents of Hantsport and near the Halfway River Abattoir knew what was right for their area. They insisted time and again that an abattoir was required and a culvert simply would not do. The government had to throw good money after bad when they ultimately reversed their decision and now put in the abattoir. The province has embarked on a plan to replace and upgrade the crumbling dike and abattoir system in the rest of the province. It's a great announcement, and I referred to in the previous question, but it's wasted money unless the department builds what the community needs. So my question is, will the minister commit to an extensive community consultation as part of the dike system renewal plan, and will he listen to the communities this time?
The Honourable Minister of Transportation.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I really don't think that any of the money that we have spent helping the residents of the Hantsport area is bad money, Mr. Speaker. I think it's all good, a sincere effort by this government to help the community out. We will be working closely with the MLA for the area there to continue to effect the repair that we see just down the road. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Agriculture. Mr. Speaker, agricultural exports are the third largest export category for Nova Scotia, following seafood and tires. The most important products exported over the past 5 years include wild blueberries, mink fur, miscellaneous food preparations, and vegetables. These four products comprise 70% of all Nova Scotia agricultural exports. In 2017, the largest export destination was the United States, which received 55% of our agricultural exports. So naturally, Nova Scotia farmers are concerned about the impact of the new U.S.-Mexico-Canada Free Trade Agreement. Can the minister provide an update on the USMCA and how it is expected to affect agricultural exports in Nova Scotia?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you very much. And this issue is always very important to us. The U.S. is a very important customer for us, and indeed is our biggest trading partner. And from what we can see so far, it's going to have minimum impact on our industry. The federal government has decided to develop some new trade rules, and they appear to be all right at this time.
The Honourable Member for Kings North.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the minister for that answer. However, supply-managed agriculture sectors have expressed concern about this new agreement and the impact it will have on future demands for their product. Some of the quota for dairy include granting an additional U.S. market access of 3.59% to Canada's domestic dairy market and elimination of Class 6 and 7 milk, along with limits on exportability. Poultry has a quota of 47,000 tonnes on entry into force, which continues to grow for the next 10 years. Eggs have an initial quota of 10 million dozen, increasing annually over the next 10 years. Turkey also have a quota over the next 10 years, and I'll table that. Can the minister explain how supply-managed sectors will be compensated for the introduction of the increased supply of foreign milk, poultry, eggs, and turkey into the local food chain?
The Honourable Minister of Business.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member for the question. It really is an important one, falling under the auspices of trade. The USMCA negotiation was a very long process for us, well over a year at the provincial level. We conducted regular roundtables where many of the farmers in the member's area that he would know very well in terms of both the individuals, the organizations, and the products themselves. And look, quite frankly, one of the challenges around the USMCA negotiation was exactly that of supply management. Our voices were heard. The farmers in Nova Scotia have had certainly a sounding board for us via to the federal government directly. We're still awaiting, obviously, the passage of the USMCA in the U.S. We're waiting with respect to what adjustments we may make and what happens next. But I can tell you that there was concern, but the farmers in Nova Scotia were heard in this one, and we'll continue to fight for their very best interests as we move forward to the final passage of the USMCA. Thanks.
The honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Building a local food supply is a very important goal that we should be trying to achieve. Food security is important, and also to create a sustainable food supply, which will reduce greenhouse gas emissions associated with food imports and food miles. A local food strategy is important, and I believe Cumberland North can play a very important role. Cumberland County has 30% of the arable farmland in the province, yet much of it goes unused. My question to the Minister of Agriculture is, can he share with us what his department is currently doing to build a local food strategy and how Cumberland North can be a part of that?
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you very much. As I said earlier, we are reviewing exactly how Select Nova Scotia worked. We weren't happy with the results of the way it was working. We're working on a new plan, and Cumberland North will definitely be part of that plan.
The honourable member for Cumberland North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Cumberland North and Cumberland County has very rich soils, although there are many different soil types. On May the 7th, I sent a letter to the minister asking if someone from the department would be able to meet with me to create an inventory of soil types in Cumberland, as well as look at different land use strategies in order to get our farmland back into production. Unfortunately, I did not get a response, so I sent the same letter to the deputy minister a month later. I didn't get a response. And finally, on August 21st, I made one more attempt sending my request to the minister, yet not another response. So my question to the minister is, I really believe Cumberland North can play a large role in a local food strategy, and I'm asking if the minister can have someone in the department to meet with me and my local farmers to help create an inventory of soils and land use strategy.
The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Yes, thank you very much, and thank you to the member for the letters you did send us, and indeed we're not ignoring you. We're reviewing all the land soils and doing a lot more soil tests than we've ever done in the province to get a better result from the soils, and we will definitely meet with you. It's not an issue, but we wanted to probably get more work done before we actually had a meeting.
The honourable member for Cape Breton-Richmond.
Mr. Speaker, in this House I've raised the issue of cell phone and landline service as well as internet service in some of the more rural parts of Cape Breton-Richmond, namely Framboise, Foreshute, Grand River and Dundee. Mr. Speaker, I was assured by the minister responsible for EMO that the government is working to ensure that all areas of Nova Scotia have access to reliable communication services. And in fact, I know for a fact that a request for a proposal went out through the municipality of Richmond over a year, probably and a half ago now, but there's still no cell phone towers in those areas. So I would like to ask, especially after tabling a petition with about 531 signatures on it over a year and a half ago, can the minister please provide the residents of Framboise Foreshute with an update on the construction of a new cell phone tower in both the Framboise Foreshute area as well as in Dundee?
The Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the question from the Honourable Member. It's a very important issue that we are indeed working on.
We went out, I think, in late May with an RFI, expression of interest, looking for a cell phone gap analysis and a communications gap analysis so we can do an actual very detailed assessment of where those gaps might be so that we can look at and responsibly respond to that by way of whatever necessary spending may need to occur, whether it's hardware, towers, or whatever it might be, Mr. Speaker. And we'll continue to work on that.
The honourable member for Cape Breton-Richmond.
Mr. Speaker, as we all know, after Hurricane Dorian, again, thousands of Nova Scotians were left without access to cell or landline service, which threatened the safety of these residents in the case of an emergency. This is an everyday occurrence in Framboise, Foreshute, Grand River, and Dundee. One resident contacted me recently terrified that they did not have landline service for almost 3 weeks post-hurricane. These are the same people that don't have access to cell phone coverage. There is no way for these people to call for help, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask the minister, and it's good to hear that there's assessments happening, but what concrete help, a commitment of assistance can the minister give my constituents who are going without ongoing, reliable communication services in these areas?
The Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And again, I thank the honourable member for her question. It raises a very important issue. And we do continue to work on this. We're hoping to have some results from that analysis very soon, Mr. Speaker. We also know that the emergency services that are out there do have, fortunately, a way of communicating through the trunk mobile radio that does exist. We've used that for years. It is there. It is not a telephone line, that is for sure. But we continue to work on this, Mr. Speaker. And as we assess the fallout from things like Hurricane Dorian, this will be part of that debriefing and the things and lessons learned. And we will look at how we continue to improve, Mr. Speaker, right across this province. Thank you.
The Honourable House Leader for the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, a question for the Minister of Health on the CBRM healthcare redevelopment changes. Mr. Speaker, my question centers around how the government came up with these plans and what they were based on. Were they based on population of the area? Were they based on predicted demographics of an aging population? Were they based on the needs of the local population? Can the government and the minister table, I'm sure he wouldn't have it with him today, I wouldn't expect that, but at a future date, could he table the evidence and the basis for the decision, specifically in terms of the reasons behind the size of the redevelopment for the various expanded services that are being offered?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. What we've determined throughout many discussions here in the legislature with respect to the redevelopment, both here in Halifax and in Cape Breton, the fact is we established a committee, Mr. Speaker, with the partnership with the Health Authority and Mr. Speaker and Transportation Infrastructure Renewal representatives to go out and engage frontline healthcare professionals, hundreds of frontline physicians and other professionals, as well as community representatives, Mr. Speaker, have been part of the engagement process to understand what the healthcare needs for the communities are. And through that work of understanding what the needs for the communities are, Mr. Speaker, it established a design requirements for the redevelopment, Mr. Speaker, in Cape Breton and here in Halifax.
The Honourable House Leader for the Official Opposition.
Well, Mr. Speaker, surely for billions of dollars of an investment, there would be some evidence. It wouldn't just go from word of mouth alone, Mr. Speaker. So, I'm curious to know if, how does government know if the changes are enough? Just moving specifically to my own constituency, those regional services being offered do impact residents of my constituency when they go beyond our local hospitals in Inverness and Cheticamp. What about those hospitals and the needs of the populations they serve? And I think about things like renal dialysis. Was there any consideration for expanded CBRM services, how they will impact local services? And is the government making decisions here based on evidence, or are they just randomly deciding to fund projects and making decisions based on simply on word of mouth?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The member raises an important question around the topic of renal dialysis, hemodialysis services. Mr. Speaker, this is a topic that we've discussed numerous times from members from a variety of communities across this province. As the member would know, an analysis and work was done specifically around the renal dialysis program. There are a number of recommendations to expand access to service, to reduce travel time. A lot of research and evaluation went into that, Mr. Speaker. We identified those communities, and expansions of the program were identified. Much of that work is ongoing. RFPs are out. Construction is underway, including in Cape Breton at the Glace Bay Regional, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Northside Westmount. Order, please. The honourable member for Northside Westmount.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question is for the minister responsible for EMO. The fire hall in North Sydney has recently received a generator donated to them by Marine Atlantic. Despite it being a donation, the estimated costs for hooking it up are in the range of $30,000. With the recent hurricane, it would have enhanced their comfort station and its services. However, the cost is simply too considerable to bear alone for the fire hall. My question for the minister: could the minister clarify what could be done for the North Sydney Fire Hall to mitigate the costs of hooking up their donated generator?
The Honourable Minister of Municipal Affairs.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I thank the honourable member for a very good question. Certainly those generators are extremely important, as we learned through the hurricane that we had just experienced, a number of power outages. We will continue to work with our fire services right across this province and other community organizations that supply us with comfort centres, Mr. Speaker. And if there's a possible way that we can assist that department, I'd be happy to talk to them. Let's not forget, Mr. Speaker, something we've done annually for quite some years now is the Emergency Services Provider Fund. We're very involved with our fire services across this province, and we'll continue to be, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Northside Westmount.
Mr. Speaker, as mentioned, the cost of simply hooking up a generator is considerable for all regions, not just in North Sydney. However, changes did occur to the Emergency 911 Act this past spring. Adjustments were made in hopes of making more services available to Nova Scotians during emergency and severe weather events. This may include providing comfort centres with satellite phones or helping provide enhanced cell phone charging services for citizens during prolonged weather events or emergencies. Mr. Speaker, could the minister verify when the applicants will be able to access the funds provided for in the amendment?
The time allotted for oral questions put by members to ministers has expired. Just before we move on to government business, the Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And if I could just provide clarity and correction based on an information, a question that came from the member from Kings North. There was a suggestion in his comment, in his question, that the ad with the Tide Fest was running to promote a Liberal candidate during the election. I'd like to just correct the record to say that that ad was an ad for a celebration in the community, and it was pulled on the day the writ was dropped. So it has not been running during the election.
The Honourable Minister of Health on an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I direct my colleagues' attention to the Speaker's gallery, to your gallery, Mr. Speaker, where Chief Petty Officer Andrew Carnegie is visiting from the West Coast, doing some work here with the local Navy site, Mr. Speaker. He's also, fortunately or unfortunately, my cousin, so he's here for to see the facility here and the proceedings here. So if I could ask my colleagues to give him the warm welcome of the legislature.
We'll now move on to government business. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would you please call public bills for second reading?
We'll now call public bills for second reading.
Mr. Speaker, would you please call Bill number 175, the Marine Renewable Energy Act?
We'll now call Bill number 175, the Marine Renewable Energy Act. The Honourable Minister of Mines and Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that Bill number 175, the Marine Renewable Energy Act, be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased today to be able to talk a bit more about amendments we intend to make to the Marine Renewable Energy Act. These changes are all about making sure Nova Scotia remains at the leading edge of developing tidal technologies. Doing so will grow our green economy and create jobs in rural areas of our province. It will also help us to continue to lead the fight against climate change and add more green electricity to our grid. Through these amendments, government will issue new power purchase agreements to developers at Force. Force is the world's leading tidal research facility, and the companies there are doing groundbreaking work. Once their projects are operational, the developers at Force will continue to have the ability to sell electricity to the utility for up to 15 years. This gives developers time to make the most of their significant investments and build on their progress to date. Make no mistake, Mr. Speaker, this government remains committed to greening the electricity grid as part of our fight against climate change. We are excited about the future of tidal. Tidal energy continues to be a huge opportunity for us. This year alone, we have seen tens of millions of dollars invested by companies and the federal government. We've seen 2 new players come to the Bay of Fundy to test their technologies. In some of my conversations with one developer, I know the company has significant plans to build their devices right here in Nova Scotia. That would mean a lot of very good jobs. It will also mean a very strong vote of confidence for the skill of our workers and for our province being open for business. We are seeing this kind of progress, but it can still take decades for a new industry to develop. Mr. Speaker, that's why government needs to make these changes. And that's why industry supports these amendments. According to Marine Renewables Canada, we are recognizing the challenges that tidal energy faces to reach commercialization. The industry group says these amendments establish the predictability and certainty tidal developers need to attract investment and ensure projects advance successfully. Sustainable Marine Energy is planning to build North America's biggest in-stream tidal array, and the company welcomes our news. They say a supportive and stable market environment is required to deliver commercially viable, abundant, and predictable clean energy. Mr. Speaker, that's what these amendments deliver. The supportive and stable market industry needs to be successful. We are a leader in tidal energy research and development. We understand how this technology can be a global clean energy game changer. If we make the most of this opportunity, it means jobs, prosperity, and a cleaner energy future for all of us. We are at the beginning of this race, but already we can see that we are on the right track. That's because we know what it means to be a leader in clean energy and technology. Nova Scotia is a leader in fighting climate change by reducing emissions. We have set one of the most aggressive greenhouse gas reduction targets in the country. We are leaders in energy efficiency. 16,000 low-income Nova Scotians have had free energy efficiency upgrades since 2007. More than 120,000 homes in Nova Scotia have installed an energy-saving heat pump. More than 200 businesses and 1,400 people now work in the energy efficiency industry. Energy efficiency avoids more than 1 million tons of carbon emissions each year. And here too, Mr. Speaker, we continue to build on our successes. Over the next 3 to 4 years, we are investing nearly $120 million in programs that reduce emissions and fight climate change. We are investing $25 million in energy efficiency upgrades that will improve 2,400 Mi'kmaq homes and 11,500 public housing units. Over the past 10 years, renewable energy use has more than tripled. We are leaders in Atlantic Canada for wind installations. The amount of solar electricity generated here has tripled in the past year, as more than 500 families have participated in the Solar Homes program. More than 70 community organizations have been approved to add solar panels to their buildings and can sell electricity to their utility. And perhaps most impressively, Mr. Speaker, when we started the Solar Homes program last year, there were 13 approved installers in the province. Today, there are 57. That's hundreds of new jobs. And all of this is to say that Nova Scotia has been here before. We know the benefit of taking a leadership role in the fight against climate change. We know the jobs and economic benefits that come with supporting an early-stage developing industry. We all see the potential and more in our tidal industry. We have led the way in Canada, and in North America. With tidal energy, we have the opportunity to lead the world to a cleaner energy future. Mr. Speaker, I look forward to the comments from my colleagues. Thank you.
The Honourable House Leader for the Official Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, if Nova Scotia can do something with tidal energy, it will be a real game changer for our province. Or potentially, it will be a real game changer for our province. The question I ask is, what's in it for Nova Scotians? I can understand these companies are taking great risk to try to develop this technology. But I ask again, what's in it for Nova Scotians? I think their interests need to be protected. I think, we know that I think the federal government has invested $27 million to date in some of these companies. That's probably in addition to R&D tax credits they're getting. Then we have this rate that's in this bill, which is, it's a high rate. Now it's capped, the amount of energy that will be purchased. But I'm okay with that, Mr. Speaker, in the sense that this is encouraging a form of renewable development that could make a real difference, not only for our province, but for the world. But I am not leaving the point of where the money is coming to support this research and development, and it's coming from taxpayers. And I think the government should really have an eye on this. For instance, is there a vision for royalties in the future for this power if it becomes commercialized? It is energy, it belongs to nature, but it belongs to our province. And we should be ensuring that if it becomes a lucrative form of energy, some of this investment that Nova Scotians are putting up right now to support these companies comes back to Nova Scotians. If it's not royalties, perhaps it's arrangements where Nova Scotians benefit from this green energy by way of a better price than what's out there in the marketplace. Because I could foresee, if this tidal energy becomes commercialized, I could foresee it garnering a high price out in the marketplace. What does that mean for Nova Scotians? Are they going to have to pay that high price too? Or do they get something back for this investment the government is making now? So that is the question that I would ask. And, I would also say, I know this is capped, but I would also say the issue of affordability. But because this is capped at about, I think it's about 1% or a little less than 1% of the power that's consumed in the province right now, it's not going to have a significant impact on the price of power, but it might help to spur this development. So those are the things that are in my mind, Mr. Speaker. I look forward to hearing from other members on what their thoughts are. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm very happy to speak to this bill. I don't know what number it is, but the Act to amend Chapter 32 of the Act of 2015, the Marine Renewable Energy Act. I'm really glad to see this bill coming forward. We need to see a renewal of the ability to issue purchase power agreements for tidal energy. Absolutely, tidal could be a game changer. It's an exciting, thing to think about. It's obvious that we need to harness a range of renewable energy sources in order to keep our planet from warming to more than 1.5 degrees. Tidal is an important and exciting avenue. And it needs a guaranteed market for its electricity, but it's worth noting that it's also very risky and that we are always aware of the failed Cape Sharp tidal venture. And so I mention this because I believe, and our caucus believes, it's crucial to make large-scale investments in proven renewable energy sources as well, such as wind. And the minister himself mentioned that this could take decades to come on board, to come fully on side. So I just want to make a couple of comments on things that have been already said in the House today on this. We know already that the cheapest and most effective way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is deep energy retrofit. And the minister did speak a little bit about that. And honestly, Nova Scotia has some great programs. The Efficiency Nova Scotia programs are excellent, but given that and given the deep need to speed up the work that's being done so that we can meet targets that, in fact, Nova Scotia doesn't have, and I'll speak to that in a second, but targets that the IPCC and the UN are saying are absolutely necessary, we need to do more. And so we already have technology, we already have workers. We could expand our economy by miles by really investing in energy retrofits and the programs that we already have. We triple the program, quadruple the program, and see where we get. And when my colleague from Inverness says what's in it for Nova Scotia, I would argue that what's in it for Nova Scotia is a planet to live on. And I'm totally serious about that. Folks, we have to stop dancing around this issue, and we need real commitments from all sides of this House to get us to a place where our targets are responsible targets. So speaking of targets, the minister has said that we have aggressive targets, and some of the most aggressive targets in this country. We do not. We had aggressive targets at one time, but we know now that the targets have to be improved. We know that we need to have 50% greenhouse gas emissions, 50% less than below 1990 levels, and we need to get to net zero by 2050. And if we're not on that course, then we're on a course that is going to allow the planet to warm to catastrophic levels. So, speaking of that, so this brings me to my next point, which is the EXPA legislation and the EXPA consultations. The idea that we might, that some of the language around that new act might remove environmental goals, or that there's a question around removing the wording of environmental goals from that act, it, to me, is reprehensible. We need to make sure that we are using the EXPA legislation to improve our targets. Anyway, getting back to the bill at hand, I would say that I'm excited about tidal energy, but I do think in the meantime, Mr. Speaker, we need to improve the stuff that we are working on to make sure that we have strong targets and that we can save us from catastrophic climate change. Thank you.
The honourable member for Kings North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's my pleasure to say a few words about this Marine Renewable Energy Act also, and I do recognize the incredible potential of the Bay of Fundy, and we, in our Kings North, which borders that whole area, we call it the roar of the moon. It's the moon that makes the tide move, and the immense amount of power that is there, that if we could even harness a tiny fraction of it would make a huge difference for all of the reasons that all of my colleagues have stated, and those are just tremendous opportunities. So in that sense, this is a great bill. I just want to highlight two issues that we've had, and in fact, we've had these issues in Kings North with Fundy Force and the whole renewable energy sector and what's happening there. And the first was that I was very disappointed that Open Hydro went bankrupt. Of course, we all were. And somebody in that company had to know they were going bankrupt. So to have put down that turbine 2 days before they went bankrupt was a deeply cynical move on someone's part in that company. And I don't believe that would have been the local people. But what happened out of that was that there was hundreds of thousands of dollars left owing to companies in my constituency, friends of mine who worked on that, one friend of mine in particular who worked on that. And it was, I think, on the part of Open Hydro, even though I applaud their efforts of what they're trying to achieve, the way that this all went down was deeply cynical on their part. And now, as a province, we are left with a 200-ton piece of steel out in the channel that's been there for a year with no possibility or no end in sight to when will that be lifted or removed, or will it ever be lifted or removed. I understand that the barge that was capable of doing that has been sold at auction in the proceeds from this bankruptcy, and so the equipment to lift and remove it isn't even there. So I guess the first thing I would have liked to have seen in the bill going forward, or maybe as we learn lessons as a result of this, is that there needs to be very solid provision for or performance bonds or something, or insurance for the cost of removal of derelict equipment when it goes wrong. And international companies can go bankrupt, and even the company, in reality, the whole company didn't go bankrupt, but a subsidiary of a larger company went bankrupt, and international companies can walk away from this. And I can understand why. You know, I know not every business venture works out, even for large companies, so I don't fault them for that. But for the company to put that in the water and then go bankrupt 2 days later is unconscionable, in my opinion. And we should have in legislation somewhere some sort of performance bonds that account for when things go wrong. And obviously, for individual entrepreneurs doing business with them, I know there is structures in place for that, and it's very unfortunate for those who are left owing money, and I'm concerned about them too. So that's one issue. A second issue, which we've seen in Kings North, is the fact of the fishing industry uses those waters, and the way that I'm a landlubber, I'm not a fisherman, but how I've come to understand how fishermen look at their license. If you have a license to fish lobster, you actually have turf. You know where you're going to put your lobster pots. And so there's actually fishers who have turf, who fish that area, and open hydro and funding force have kind of forced them out of that area because it's sort of become off limits. So there's a loss of some fishing grounds, and it depends on the species. So it might be various fishers have licenses for maybe one for herring, one for lobster, one for flounder. It could affect any of those in different ways. So I just want to be sure that when we go ahead with this, that the fishing industry is looked after and not left behind, and it's just not assumed, well, you've got a license to fish anywhere you want in the water, you can go fish somewhere else. Because that's not how they see it. They see this as, this is my area, and that's your area, and that's your area. And so somebody is displaced by this activity. So I just want to see, I would like to see an equitable accounting of that. Those would be my two concerns. Obviously, the potential for the province is just incredible. We do want to see tidal power go ahead. We want to see it succeed, of course. We don't want to see it fail. We want to see these companies that go at great risk and develop this technology, we want to see them succeed and prosper. But we want to make sure that the details are looked after in whatever agreements that we ask these companies to make. So with those words, I'll take my seat. Thank you.
If I'm recognized, the Honourable Minister of Mines and Energy. It will be for second reading of Bill number 175, the Marine Renewable Energy Act. The Honourable Minister of Energy and Mines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just in closing, thanks to all my colleagues for their comments on the bill. I believe every government that has sat on this side has at some point had the title as part of their file. So I know everybody sees the potential of what the beautiful Bay of Fundy could hold for Nova Scotia in the future. Just to follow up on just some of the comments from my colleague with the NDP, you know, energy efficiency is very important to us. That's why we've expanded the programs that we have, expanding past electric, just electric heated homes. You know, the partnership we have with the Mi'kmaq communities is first in Canada, so it's very innovative. So we've expanded significantly in the last year to ensure that as many Nova Scotians as possible can access those efficiency programs, and we're going to continue to do that. Again, I'll just close by saying great potential for the province. I see great benefit for Nova Scotians, not only for not only on the economic side, but of course on the social side as well. As I said in my opening comments, we now have companies that are interested in the Bay that actually want to build their technologies here, which is a big step forward for us. We continue to see millions of dollars of investment, and this bill is going to allow that investment to continue. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I close second reading on the Marine Renewables Energy Act amendments. Thank you.
Motion is for second reading of Bill number 175, the Marine Renewable Energy Act. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary minded, nay. Motion is carried.
Bill number 175, an act to amend Chapter 32 of the Acts of 2015, the Marine Renewable Energy Act.
Ordered that this bill be referred to the Committee on Law Amendments. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Would you please call Bill number 177, the Public Utilities Act?
Now call Bill number 177, the Public Utilities Act. The Honourable Minister of Energy and Mines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I forget what I'm supposed to say. I move second reading. Thank you to the member for Victoria Lakes. I move second reading of amendments to the Public Utilities Act now be read for a second time. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased today to be able to talk a bit about the amendments we intend to make to the Public Utilities Act. These changes are about making our large utilities more efficient. By large utilities, we mean organizations with more than $100 million in revenue. This would be Nova Scotia Power Maritime Link, and Halifax Water. Being more efficient saves these organizations time and money, and that helps keep bills stable for ratepayers. Mr. Speaker, no one likes red tape, especially this government. Over the past 6 years, we've taken extraordinary measures to cut red tape so that our economy can thrive. We've created the Office of Regulatory Affairs and Service Effectiveness. As a result, we are now a national leader on improving our regulatory environment. By cutting red tape, our businesses now save $34 million every year. Mr. Speaker, if cutting red tape makes sense for Nova Scotia businesses, it also makes sense for our utilities. The Department of Energy and Mines understands this. That's why through these amendments, we are reducing unnecessary regulatory filings. Right now, utilities need to seek approval from the Utility and Review Board for spending above $250,000 when that spending is outside of their annual capital plan. By raising the limit to $1 million, we can eliminate roughly 40 approvals. In general, utilities spend $50,000 or more per application. Mr. Speaker, that means the savings associated with cutting this red tape could be $2 million or more. For Nova Scotia Power, examples of this type of work include routine business such as valve replacements on boilers, replacing a transformer at a hydro station, or replacing cooling water intake screens at power plants. For Halifax Water, this work could include storm sewer renewal or culvert replacements. Mr. Speaker, these are routine items. They certainly do not need unnecessary costs and delays attached to them. Plus, the system will continue to ensure that ratepayers receive value for dollars spent. At the end of the day, this spending will remain transparent and accountable. The regulator will still have the ability to determine if expenses are in the best interest of ratepayers. Whether it's by government or a utility, Nova Scotians want and deserve to know that their money is being spent wisely. Mr. Speaker, that accountability is a big part of government's 25-year electricity plan. Nova Scotians said they want predictable power rates and greater accountability. The electricity plan is delivering. We are in a stretch of unprecedented electricity rate stability. Over the past 3 years, rate increases have been lower than the rate of inflation, and that will continue for the foreseeable future. This period of time has given us the opportunity to take a long-term view of Nova Scotia's energy future. Our goal is to achieve overall energy stability and keeping costs low and keeping rates stable. At the same time, Nova Scotia Power is more accountable than ever before. Performance standards are in place for customer service, reliability, and storm response. Plus, the Utility and Review Board has the tools to ensure Nova Scotians pay only the lowest in actual costs of fuel for electricity. Mr. Speaker, through the electricity plan, government is opening the door to innovation and development. We are supporting electric vehicle use, solar electricity, and the development of our tidal industry. But Nova Scotians will always want to know how their money is being spent and if they've received good value from their utility. That's the role of the Utility and Review Board, and these amendments to the Public Utilities Act do not change that. By reducing the number of pre-approvals needed, these amendments save time and money by making utilities more efficient. Cutting this red tape helps keeps power and water rates stable for Nova Scotians. Also included in these amendments are a few clarifications for long-term natural gas pipeline contract regulations. We announced those changes in June. They are designed to give the UARB the ability to approve long-term contracts, and they align with the Public Utilities Act and the Gas Distribution Act. These agreements have the potential to provide Nova Scotians with reliable access to natural gas while keeping electricity prices stable. The Utility Review Board will independently consider if proposed agreements are in the best interest of ratepayers. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I look forward to the comments from my colleagues.
The Honourable House Leader for the official opposition.
Mr. Speaker, this seems like a common sense piece of legislation. And I know that one interesting statistic would be, I don't know if it's possible or not, if the minister could maybe deliver it at some point in the future. It would be interesting to know how many applications have been in on an annual basis that will now won't have to go in anymore because they'll fall below the new $1 million threshold. It would be interesting to hear that. So, Mr. Speaker, I mean, we're for anything that helps remove red tape, as long as it's also in the interests of the ratepayers. In this case, I think it would be, because it should reduce costs for these approvals, but also protects the consumer with the UARB still having the ability to go back and review these expenses to make sure they were done appropriately and in the interests of the consumer. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to take a lot of time. We'll be supporting this bill. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Dartmouth North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak to this bill. Yes, cut red tape. Utilities and the Utilities Review Board and the department have all independently asked for this change, and we think it's probably a good idea. But it makes sense to me that if we want to reduce the administrative burden on all involved, and if we're looking for ways to improve our utilities, then there's lots of other places we could look as well. One thing I do want to talk about in this forum is that we need to keep energy poverty at top of mind. Mr. Speaker, I know as a constituency MLA in Dartmouth North that there are many, many people who simply cannot afford to pay their power bills. It's a question of rates, but it's also a question of income inadequacy. It's a question of energy efficiency. Once again, people are living in buildings where their heat is going out the leaky windows and the uninsulated walls. And so all of these things go hand in hand. And we need to make sure that we have electricity and power that is affordable for everybody. Nobody should be living with the threat of losing the ability to store and prepare food or even heat their homes because they cannot afford to pay their power bill. And I know that there are many people come, May, usually April, May, when the temperatures get high enough. We call it power cutoff season in Dartmouth North, because so many people have just made it through the winter but then are in arrears and cannot afford, and their bills their power is cut off. So we should be reminded that also that Nova Scotia Power's private monopoly model is bad for taxpayers, and that's something that this government and the Premier has described himself. So I look forward to continuing the work on how to make improvements to large utilities and how they're regulated in the province, all the while ensuring accessibility and affordability. Thank you.
And recognize the Honourable Minister of Energy and Mines. It will be for second reading of Bill number 177, the Public Utilities Act. The Honourable Minister of Energy and Mines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just briefly, thank you to my colleagues for their comments. I think just to reiterate that we're making some changes here that are going to reduce red tape. It's going to reduce some of the filings that will go through, but ultimately the oversight still remains. So there are accountability standards. Everything still remains in place to ensure that the utilities, that the UARB still has the ability to do their job. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I close a second reading on the amendments to the Public Utilities Act.
The motion is for second reading of Bill number 177, the Public Utilities Act. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye? Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried.
Bill number 177, an act to amend Chapter 380 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Public Utilities Act.
Ordered that this bill be referred to the Committee on Law Amendments. The Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That concludes government business for today. I move that the House now rise to meet again tomorrow, Wednesday, October 9th, 2019, between the hours of 1 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. And as is the tradition of the House, Wednesday is Opposition Day. So now I turn the floor over to the PC House Leader to call tomorrow's agenda.
The Honourable House Leader for the official opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank the Government House Leader. I can't guarantee we'll be as efficient tomorrow with the time. We may go a little longer than today, but I would like to call bills for second reading. Bill number 167, an act to amend the Tobacco Access Act, that's vaping. Bill number 173, an act to amend the Education Act and the CSAP Act, human trafficking. And Bill number 181, an act to amend the Public Utilities Act around charitable housing. We look forward to joining you again tomorrow.
Thank you very much. The motion is for the House to adjourn to rise again tomorrow, October the 9th, between the hours of 1 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. Would all those in favor of the motion please say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion is carried. The House now stands adjourned until tomorrow at 1 p.m.